Welcome to the Clicks and Giggles podcast. This is your host, Jordan Rothwell Perry. And today we're going to talk about high ticket programs from both aspects of if you are going to invest in one and if you have one. So I'm going to talk about both sides of it in every kind of bullet point or point. And how did this come to be? I was just at an awesome retreat with Alexis Greco, and we were talking about high ticket, how high is too high of a price to charge, and just the industry in general. Like, I just was like, I'm curious what people think. How much is too much? So let's just freaking go into it. I want to start with high ticket and selling and buying, whether you're the consumer or you're the person selling it. And my first big point I want to make is about testimonials. If you are buying and you are like, okay, they have some testimonials, this is good. But then you think, I don't know. I mean, these are just screenshots. Have they had this for a while, etc.? You can ask them about particular students. You can say, hey, can you tell me about a student or client who is in a similar situation to mine? Is there someone who you all have worked with who is willing to do a sales call with me just so I can ask them a couple questions about it? And then you compensate the student for taking the sales call. So I've done this for people. I've closed for a coach of mine, love her to death, and she gave me a percentage of the sale when they bought. And I was able to very clearly be like, hey, yes, I went through this. This is perfect for you in your season. And of course, if it wasn't, I would be like, hey, I would get this, this, and this in order, and I would come back next quarter. In a world where everyone's like, rah, rah, so-and-so is the best, this third-party validation of someone speaking for you, make sure they've actually taken the course or the program. And they're not just saying it because they're being paid to say it or because they are just a friend who thinks the person's awesome and has no idea. Like, that's sweet. I love when people are like, Jordan's great at this. And I know they believe it, but you know what's even more credible is a student coming up and saying it, is a client being able to say it. So double check the testimonials, like just ask them. This also came to be because I spent over $30,000 on coaching and programs this year, and that were a bust. That was a bust. So that's one thing. And I spent more than that. I have a budget within my business of what is going to be personal development, who I'm learning from, rooms I want to be in to meet people, etc. And I just learned from my mistakes. It was a bummer, but I also learned. And that is what any purchase you make, you're going to freaking learn one way or another. Hopefully it's in a good way, unlike mine. But the first point I want to make is the testimonial side. As a consumer, you can ask for more details, 100%. A client of mine just had a great launch, and she had one of her coaches there as a success coach to take sales calls and answer questions people had. So she could make sure that without a shadow of a doubt, they felt so empowered and good in their decision. Because there's nothing worse than buying something and feeling like, well, this is a bust. If you're a consumer and you want more details, ask 100%. Like, you can ask. I think about you're at Macy's and someone says, do you have any questions? You're like, yeah, I actually do. Can this? Or you're shopping for fine jewelry. Like, someone's coming alongside of you to make sure it is the best purchase experience for you. So you could ask more questions. And I am not, what do they say, like the tortoise and the hare type of buyer. I am a fast buyer, fast buyer. I have since joining these programs implemented a 72-hour rule before I buy something that is over a certain amount because of that, because I get excited. I like the hype. I'm like, oh, this is going away. And I'm a marketer. I know that they do this too. It's just exciting. And you deserve to take a space and be like, let me ponder this. This looks so good. Let me think of any questions I have and I'll get back to you on Monday. 100% you can do that. Do not let someone's, I'm air quoting right now, countdown timer intimidate you when it is a bigger purchase for you. On the flip side, as a coach, consultant, business owner, whatever you want to call yourself, there's nothing worse than someone working with you who is actually not a good fit. Just think about that on the testimonial end. How can I get more specific testimonials that call out who this is really for, who's going to see the results? And of course, if you're a business owner thinking, you know what, I should add calls with people who have been through the program, figure out how you're going to compensate them for their time too. It's been a great way for me. Like, it feels like extra fun money. I'm like, oh, I'm just passionate about this and I get to make money closing them. Like 10 out of 10. Next, I want to talk about cost and just almost like justifying cost. So there's people out there who like really inflate what their one-on-one hourly rate is so that they can then justify and help people think that like their group program is such a good deal. I'm air quoting because I just got an ad for this woman who says, my hourly rate is X, but I'm going to teach you everything in this time. And then you think, oh, I definitely should show up if she's doing this. Then at the end of the teaching, I mean, I've been through what I'm talking about, so I can say this. It's like a $20,000 to $25,000 program, but you're thinking like, oh, but their rate is this. Yeah. And so people will do different things when they're selling to justify the cost, and buyers will do different things when they're buying to justify the cost. Let me explain. That's just one example of a way of price anchoring and inflating the price so to where you think, yeah, this is a good deal. This is good for me. And if it is, great. I just want you to be so confident in what you are buying that you're like, no brainer. Yes. When I bought into this higher ticket program this year, it had a ton of calls. And when I was on the call with them being sold to, I was like, okay, so if I'm struggling with this, I can go to this call, that call. And it was in a season, there's different times of year when I'm really busy and when I'm just busy with work. And I was just busy, but it was very manageable. And so I just thought, oh my gosh, this is great. There's so many calls. Well, me in November, I don't want to be on another call. And so think about the length of time of the program. And like, just because there are a ton of calls and it essentially air quote makes it easier to justify the price is this per month, but it's this many calls, which equals this per call. Can you go to those calls? And if you can't, look at the bare minimum. Like, hey, if I did the bare minimum, if I got really busy, if someone got sick, if I felt burnt out, if I decided to pivot in my business, would this still be worth it, what I would learn? And then you can decide, because I am very much of the less is more mindset when it comes to group programs. This is personal opinion. I would rather have one group call and get to know a really nice group of people. And I would rather have one call a month with the person I'm needing to learn from, the expert. So the founder of the program. And then I love a good like Slack community. That way you could fire off a question if you need, but you don't need to get on a call or sit on a call with your hand raised to get your question answered. It's like a quick, boop, needed to know this. Thank you. You answered it in a 45-second voice memo. Perfect perspective, moving along. Figure out what you need. Like from now on, I'm not joining anything that cannot give me exactly what I need. Or I'm just going to go to the founder and say, how much is an hour call with you? We were talking about this at the retreat. Even if we had to spend a lot more money to get questions answered on one call, we will do it. It just depends on the stage you're in. If you are newer to business, and I know it is lonely, especially online business, then yeah, you may like the camaraderie of a group, but you can do that. You can go to a million calls, but I also want you to respect your time and not have you be like, man, I feel like I'm on freaking 5 million calls a month and can't get my work done. When it comes to cost, we are always going to justify things. And so make sure that if you did the, even if you're like, well, there's 8 calls a month and then there's a group call and there's this, could you do everything? Think about if you could do the bare minimum and then would it still be worth it? And with that, some programs will be like, you're going to have recordings from past calls and you're going to have past access to this and that and all these things bundled in, which is amazing. It also makes it seem like it's even more of a good value. Will you watch them? Will you do them? If you will, then great, add that into the value. If you're like, this literally does nothing for me, then don't, as you're deciding, make that a deciding factor. And there are high pressure sales scenarios where you feel like you just have to jump in. And I am just reminding you, like with justifying the cost, with a bonus that may take money off, with all the bells and whistles, it is okay to pause and decide that you're going to wait to decide versus feeling like you have to before the metaphorical timer or a real timer runs out. So when it comes to what something costs, run it through the filter of what you can afford what isn't going to put a strain on your business and what really is like the best investment for this season of life. And with cost, on the flip side, from a business owner perspective, the things I see is like adding a ton of interest to payment plans. I think that is just crazy and sinful. I think that you can add a little element of a payment plan 100% where payment plan interest, where it's like to account for the fact that like if a payment fails, you have to follow up with them, or like if there's any admin associated with it, like 100%, a little bit. But I have seen crazy interest to detract people from not paying in full. And I just think that is wild. Even the way I run my business, like I cash flow everything out so I can look at the next X amount of months, project what's coming in, project what's going out. I don't want huge chunks of money going out. So that is just wild to me when people are upselling or like charging so much more because someone is trying to be wise and have it be more accessible, but like with a crazy cost tied to it. So that's just something when it comes to cost and what you're offering to think on. Next, I want to talk about from the program perspective of upselling, not always upselling someone. So this comes with the other program I bought that included some live events. And so I was like, okay, this is sweet. Person, they sell to a different demographic than I've been around, and I want to get in those rooms and I want to be around these people and just learn from them. And so heck yes, even if I have to do a little traveling, this is great. What I didn't realize is at this person's events, there are salespeople with clipboards chasing you down. You cannot go to the bathroom without someone stopping you to talk to you. And then ultimately they're trying to upsell you into a different package. It was so uncomfortable for my husband and I. If they had just done it like once or even like once a day, it would have been fine. And then if they could have marked us in our system, like talked to them when they saw the name tag and searched us, they have HubSpot or whatever CRM they use on their phone. They're trying to sell me up on into something. And I said, oh no, I have tickets to that in Las Vegas. And they pulled it up and they're like, no, you don't have the main ticket. You have this ticket for the last day. Do you want to buy it now? And I just finally was like, hey, I've only been in this program 3 months and it's a year. Give me your name, give me your number. And if I need anything, you are my guy. That is what I ended up doing. And then if other people came to talk to me, my backup plan, like we literally had to talk about this as a couple, was just say, hey, I'm making up names. I'm working with Jeff. He's great, but thank you. We're good, and move along. And so actually, like we didn't end up going to one of the last days of the conference because it was that bad. Like I joked to my girlfriends that I thought I was going to roll over in bed while we were in town for this. And one of the salesmen would have been like at the edge of my bed, like a little child saying they want water or they're sick to their mom, but being like, are you ready to upgrade? And so that to me is like, I didn't feel like my purchase was important enough. And mind you, I had already spent like $12,000 for this year. It was so uncomfortable. And it was such a good reminder of let your client enjoy where they are. Let your client get some wild wins and let your client just be and be served. And same thing as a consumer, be aware of that and enjoy where you're at. Make the most of the program you're in. It was such a reminder for me. I was like, hey, I'm not done with this program actually till April and it's November when I'm recording it. And I am like, oh, I want to keep diving into the portal. And oh, I do want to look at this to make the most of it because it is business. Business is the goal of business is to make money, or you have a hobby, you have a little lemonade stand, right? Your goal as a business owner is to ascend people through your offers. So whether it's like a PDF or a $19 mini course to then a course, to then a group program, to then one-on-one, all this good stuff, whatever that looks like, and let them enjoy where they're at. Let them be so well served and you deliver so well on the program's promise that they're like, I'm a lifer. Honestly, if I had been left alone, I would probably sign up again because the teaching was good, but I felt like I was in shark infested waters. And it's really sad to say this. I will never go to one of their events again because of just how uncomfortable I felt, and because I could bring a guest and brought my husband, he felt like he was like, this is wild. And it was such a good lesson of what not to do, right? So there is a way to have someone on a path to grow with you, to spend more money with you, and to see results. If your bottom line of why you do what you do is the bottom line, well, that's not good. You need to check yourself there. But let someone enjoy where they're at in your program. And of course, down the road, if they're such a good fit, just tell them like, hey, I see you in this one day. I see how I can help you. But we're going to revisit that later. I just want to put that kind of thought in your head for down the road. And they'll be like, oh my gosh, they think of me. And wow, they're really serving me well here. I cannot imagine what it's like to work with them in that capacity. That has always been my motto. Like, even with Clicks That Count, my program that teaches you how to buy ads, it was like 12 weeks of calls. And I am just now wrapping up the calls with some of the girls. And it's been 16 weeks. And my husband's like, you have to figure out what's next for them. I know you love them, which is what there are some changes happening on that end in my business that I'm excited to talk about. But it's just get in such a heart posture where you're so excited to love on them that you are like, yes, you know, down the road, you want to put them somewhere to work with you in another capacity, but it's not always about the bottom line. It's about the crazy results they're getting that they're like, oh, her, I'm a lifer. Whatever she has, I freaking want. And so just a reminder to let them enjoy where they're at. And then if you're in a program, enjoy where you're at. You've paid for this, milk it. Go to those calls, enjoy it. I have one other bullet point that I wanted to weave in when you look at the terms of what you are working with. And gosh, maybe I have two. Ask the completion rate. This is just ask their completion rate. What percentage of people end up going to all the calls and getting things out of them? What percentage completes the program? Because that's really telling. And people should be tracking this thing. If you have a program, I would be looking at like how many people are on the calls weekly and what that average is based on everyone who's paid in the program. And if it's below a certain amount, I would over time reach out to them and say, hey, we haven't seen you. How are you? Is everything good? And B, use that as red, yellow, green. Green is like, hey, this percentage comes. This is my base mark. I'm happy. Benchmark. Yellow is like, let's kind of look into some things. And red is like, they're not coming. What do we need to do to get people to come? Do we need to send a survey out that's like, we haven't seen you in a while. Would there be a different day that's better? Be willing. If you're a good business owner, you're willing to be agile to figure it out. And if you're not, that's your prerogative and it just may not pan out as well for you. So the curiosity in these situations as a business owner, and then on the flip side, the curiosity as a consumer to say, what's the completion rate? Do most people come to the calls? Is the portal just so baller that you're just like, yes, I want what's in it? You can ask these questions. Transparency is so key and needed. And so please, please be empowered to ask questions. And then the last thing is looking at the terms and conditions. So I'm a lawyer's kid. My brother actually is a new lawyer as well. And contracts and agreements are for good boundaries. And good boundaries, I like to say, as someone once told me, good fences make good neighbors. So what is expected of you? Oh, you pay by this date. It's recurring. You're going to pay for X amount of time. Perfect. What is expected of them? Hey, we are going to do X amount of calls. You're going to get this. You're going to get that. And then just make sure they're holding up to their end of the bargain. And also something to look at is, do you lose access to the portal once it is over with? Do you have access for a year from the date of purchase? Do you have access to the portal forever? It's just that you only get calls for 6 months. Really dig into that because I don't want you to be caught off guard. And as a business owner, really think through like, okay, for the life of the program, what does that mean? I've seen some people lately do for the life of the program or 2 years, whatever is longer. I thought that's interesting. And those people, I'm like, oh, they're thinking it through. They're thinking like, hey, this may not be around forever, but you can at least have everything in it for 2 years. And gosh, in this day and age, sometimes, not sometimes, like a lot of times things are moving so fast that in 2 years, the information may be obsolete. Or talking about information becoming obsolete, are they making updates in the contract or agreement with you? Does it include updates as the program changes and they add things to the portal, or is that only for new purchasers? Because a lot of times people clone, getting in the weeds here, people clone portals. Are you going to get access to that new one as they're cloning it and making it better? Or do you get the original you bought? So just so many things. And with that in the terms, look for a disparagement clause. I have seen this more and more in the industry, and it makes me nervous when someone has you agree or sign to something saying you cannot say something bad about them. I don't think what I joined has that, because I would never join something, nor am I saying anything horrible. It just wasn't a good fit for me. Right. And look for that, because I have seen that there are some coaches out there who aren't the best coaches putting that in because of backlash they've had in the past to protect them. And you could ask them, hey, I saw this, just looking through the terms, making sure we're good on both ends, super excited. How did this come to be? I mean, you do not be afraid to ask questions before you hand over a decent amount of money. And yes, on the flip side, as a business owner, we can help people transform their businesses, get great wins, have progress, make money, all sorts of things, but they're entitled to ask questions too. So I know this podcast is a different one than I've really done, but I've been pondering this a lot. And now that I'm working on different programs in my business and just having lots of conversations with people, I really want to encourage you, if you're a consumer, to ponder these things. And then same thing if you're a business owner, what can I tweak so that people are so confident in buying my program? It should help you sell it easier because your cards are on the table. And what a great thing that is, to be able to be so transparent that people are like, oh, that's my girl. That's my person. So I would love, love, love for you to message me if this was helpful, or if it brought up a thought that you've been pondering, or maybe that you were like, I never even thought of it this way. I am Launch with Jordan on Instagram, but I just want to encourage you that as a business owner, you're worth people investing in, and do it the right way with integrity. And as a business owner looking to buy into programs, you have the right to ask good questions so that you feel totally, totally confident swiping your card. I hope you all have a good rest of the day, and thank you for listening to the Clicks and Giggles podcast.